Hey everyone, Ryan Hodge, CEO BlackFolkHotspots.com. Today we have Kelly Turner. Anyway, who is our featured guest today, member of Black Folk Hotspots, and I want to say that Kelly was inspired by our interview we did yesterday with Sam Holloway, and talking about his message as far as being molested and taken advantage of as a child. And Kelly has a story of her own, and she's also done some of the same things. And if you was watching that video yesterday, I talked about a friend of mine, and I talked about Kelly. And because I know her story, I've talked to her so many times about this, because when she came out with her book, it was like a bombshell dropping, like, whoa, me, I was like, things like that happen, and as I told Sam yesterday as well, I almost feel, somewhat blessed, because I didn't experience any of these things. And, and the fact that me and my sister was just talking like, wow, that didn't happen to us, and so, to hear other stories, either from a male perspective or the female perspective, is very interesting. So now, being that and talking with Kelly so many times, I found out that, it's not like an isolated incident, and it happens more than we know. So what we're going to do is bring Kelly in, and I want her to talk about, who she is, what she does, and then we'll get into more details of the story as we go. Kelly, how you doing today?
I am well, Ryan. First, I want to say I did watch the entire video with author Samuel, and yes, you mentioned me several times, and I wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, because you know what, all those conversations we had, and this is what I tell people about having conversations with people, and not always, even though that's your business, but I knew when you were writing the book, and a lot of times people keep things quiet, and you know what, and I think that if something like that might have happened to me, I probably will be talking about it too, because I like to talk about personal experiences I had, because I know that in the personal experiences, whatever they may have been, usually helps someone else, reach a better situation. So,
and that's what I do today. I help.
Tell people what do you do now, and then we'll go back.
So now I am a transformational coach, and I also consider myself a healing life coach, author and speaker, of course. But as a coach, I basically offer people or clients the opportunity to reach emotional freedom, because a lot of people don't know, when you have emotional blocks or mental blocks, there is no clarity. We have 7 aspects of our lives, whether it's relationships, spirituality, sexuality, finance, career, life purpose, all these different areas. If you're blocked with emotions, unhealthy emotions, or mentally blocked, then you won't have clarity on what it is that you want to do in your life. So I basically help my clients reach that clarity, reach that emotional freedom, so that they can flourish in all those areas of their lives, and then balance them, of course. And then the healing part of it is really just a matter of me tapping into that deepest part, the part that most people don't want to go in, and that's that root. As we talked about before the video started, it's so many people out here that have been sexually molested, and they don't want to touch that part. So what you're seeing is a lot of ego or superficial people, because they're not expressing their true self, because the true self is hidden behind all that pain. So my job is to bring the true person to the forefront, so that they can remove that fear, that shame, that embarrassment, and all these other unhealthy emotions that stop them from living their best life. And then, of course, as an author, I've written a few books, Perfectly Planned, and I'm going to just grab them and put it to the screen just in case in 1 second. They're right next to me.
And we also have we also had the links to the books on Amazon in the description below. But yeah, definitely.
So there's the first one, if you can see it, Perfectly Planned. Now this book, the first book, and I know you said we'll talk about that, but the first book is basically from 8 years old to 28. So that talks about the abuse that happened to me, and then what I did to myself, and then overcoming toxic relationships. This book is really about who I became after that, because another thing that victims of abuse don't understand is once you've been molested, you don't clean that stuff out, you are not living your true self. You're not. You're living as that little child that was abused, because that is the person that's going to run your life. Because if you think about it, adults or your authentic self doesn't live in fear, doesn't live in always have to be right, doesn't live in emotionally closed or walled off or competitive and discord. Adults or true self don't create these things. A child does, because a child don't have the ability to rationalize and move through their emotions. So a lot of the people that have experienced these things, you are still living as a child. You're living as your child self. And so that second book really talks about, I'm telling you, I was so immature at 28. In my book, I was literally behaving as a little girl. And when I read back, I go, oh, wow, this is how a child will behave. But the importance of that is we have to truly look at how the abuse affected us. And you're not going to do that by moving forward and ignoring it. You have to go back. So that book is really powerful in that it not only speaks to who you became, but it also speaks to your relationships. Are you in codependent relationships? Are you in abusive relationships? Are you in toxic relationships? What type of relationships are you attracting to you? Are you able to see the red flags? Because you've been raised in such an abnormal and unhealthy environment, you become conditioned. And so a lot of the relationships that you get into, whether it's, intimate relationships or sexual relationships or co-worker, those relationships are all toxic because toxicity lives in you. And that's another reason why so many relationships, Ryan, are failing. People do not realize that your childhood, if it is still too many unhealthy issues there, it is going to affect your adult life in every aspect of your life.
And that's amazing, because I remember talking to you a couple years ago, and you told me that that within 10 minutes of talking to anyone,
yes,
you can pretty much tell if they have been abused or molested, previously. And that
I know the language. Mm-hmm.
That struck me. I was like, wow, I need Kelly to be walking with me every time, like, hey, what about that person? What about that person? No, but on the serious tip, that amazed me, because when you were telling me it's in the language, and Sam, he talked about that yesterday as well, that he knows. Mm-hmm. And it's just weird to me, because I started thinking that maybe these kids nowadays are being misdiagnosed.
They are being misdiagnosed, Ryan, because the problem is when a child has been sexually abused, whether it's sexual, emotional, physical, verbal, incest, and sexual truly being the worst one. But when a child has been abused, you're going to develop anger. And the reason you develop the anger is because, first of all, you haven't told anyone, because you're probably being threatened not to tell someone, or you do not have a supportive parent. You don't trust your parent. So guess what? You're holding all of this negative emotions in. So you become angry. So as you grow older, you're just the angry black syndrome or the angry man syndrome. People don't even realize how deep and true that really is. So now you're just expressing anger because you don't know how to express your true feelings. They're buried. And then you have a lot of people with the low self-esteem. And all of this stuff is really just hidden behind fear, Ryan. It's all behind fear. I mean, look at the anger. Look at the kids out here. They're beating each other. Look at what's behind it. It's really just fear. It's really fear of who's going to notice this about me, or who's going to see my instabilities, or who's going to see my lack of confidence, or who's going to see that I don't have self-esteem. It really is just fear. So a lot of these kids that are growing up beating each other and stealing and robbing and doing all these things, they're angry. And they're not just angry because, and I wouldn't necessarily say that they've been touched, Ryan. They don't have to have been sexually abused. Physical abuse or verbal abuse creates an angry person as well. You don't have to be touched, because imagine somebody calling you a stupid ass, dumb ass. Imagine hearing that from 8 years old until the time you're a teenager. Someone has just implanted a bunch of negativity, and what children do, they internalize. And their opinions become their thoughts. So now these children are walking around with all these negative thoughts that don't belong to them in the first place, and they're just projecting them onto other people. They're just exhibiting the same anger that was given to them. They're just giving it to somebody else. These kids are suffering. Have they been touched? Probably not all of them. Some of them, yes. But are they being abused at home? Yes, they are. And I don't care if it's neglect, emotional abuse, which is one of the most silent ones. People don't even talk about that, but it's truly a silent killer. Emotional abuse is really simply something saying like this to your kid: if you don't do your homework, I'm going to take your phone from you. Or if you don't clean that room up, you can't go outside. Or I'm going to whoop your ass. It's threats, silent threats. if you don't do your homework, I'm going to take your phone. What you're basically telling the child is, I need to control you and make sure you do everything you're supposed. You hit that word, control. Control.
Mm-hmm.
It lies under emotional abuse. It's silent. So a child does not have to be touched. It's manipulation, it's control, you know, it's telling you that your feelings aren't real. You know, I know for a lot of my clients, several of them have always been told when they were smaller, if they fell off a bike and they hurt themselves, they're always told, oh, that didn't hurt, get up, be a big girl or be a big boy. So what you're telling the child is, I don't have to feel. And this is not a child that's been sexually abused. This is emotional abuse or mental abuse. You're telling me that I just cut my knee and it don't hurt. Okay, so then my feelings aren't real. So guess what? As that child grows older, every time there's an incident where he or she needs to tap into their emotions, they don't, because they've been taught that their emotions are not real. Can you see that? It's like, okay, I fail, I hurt myself, shut up, stop crying. So I can't feel, I can't cry. Is that what you're telling me? So when you get in relationships, what are you doing? You can't feel, because you're afraid to go on those feelings, because those feelings are too painful, because from the beginning of your time, you've been told not to go there. Shut up, stop crying, that didn't hurt, stop acting like a bitch, be a big girl, be a big boy. So now what? I become a robot and I become angry. This is what you see. This is what you're seeing, and not just amongst us. All my clients are not Black. It's amongst the population. It's amongst anybody out here who have not tapped into their love space, anybody who have not had some help. They are completely living in anger because they do not have the ability to process, manage, and control their emotions. No one is taught.
You know, Kelly, I'm looking at your reviews on Amazon, and you know, I know that, you know, it's and I'm looking at these things and all these different people, how they're saying that, you know, this book helped them so much. What what made you, okay, so let's back up. So I mean, I know that you're not I know that you're okay with talking about it. So
Oh yeah. Mhm.
what happened? What happened to you? What did you go through?
Okay, so when I was 8 years old, and there's a part of the story I have to share, and I can't share because my sister's now deceased. So it's not like I'm putting, you know, invading her privacy or anything like that. But it really kind of started with this gentleman named Nippy, Tyrone Brown Sr. He was known as Chester the molester in our neighborhood, and he was already molesting my sister before I even knew or heard the word Chester the molester. He was living in our house in the second bedroom next to my mother and father's bedroom, molesting my sister. He was paying my father. He was paying my father $150 a month to basically behave as her boyfriend. But he was like 21 or 2 and she was 14. That's child molestation. So the thing he told us was, oh, my sister, I'm going to get your little sisters. So that kind of came about later. But here's the thing. Prior to the Chester molester molesting my sister, my father molested her. And I'm bringing this up because that's the sister that had me perform oral sex on her and also forced me to engage in sexual activities with other girls and boys. So my father taught her these things and she just practiced on me. So I remember being in the bedroom and we had like 2 twin-size beds. And she was lying in between the 2 beds with a blanket, and she spread her legs and pulled her underwear down, and she said, lick it. And of course I said, I don't want to, but then she was older than me, and with the intimidation, you know, and the threats, you know, I did it. And right after that, you know, she would have me like suck on other little girls' breasts. She would bring kids into the house. We were probably like 8, 9, 10, 11. We were little kids. Bring them into the house, and she would try to have them have sex with us like boys, put their penises in us. It never happened because I don't think none of us knew what the hell we was doing, you know, but these are the things she was coercing us to do because my father had already taught her to do this, you know, so she was basically doing what she was taught, you know, and then, so that went on for like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years. And Ryan, it got to a point where it was happening so much where as a child, I was at this time 10, I started to seek the girls, sneak them in the house and freak them. That's what we called it back then, freaking, right? My body had become so pleasured or so conditioned to feeling what my sister was forcing us to do that I went out and sought it. Like other little girls, I bring them to the house, we kiss each other breast or whatever. And I was a kid, 10 years old. So now I'm just like, you know, totally, and I hadn't had penetration yet, but you have all that foreplay, if you want to call it. So my body is feeling these things and being stimulated by it. So by the time I was 13, my parents, my mother left my dad, and she decided, you know, he was very physically abusive. I mean, I could think of times, if I look back, my father broke her leg. You know, she had bruises in her face that never went away. So she should have left him. And that's just how I feel, because he would have killed her. And so we wind up moving with my oldest sister because my mom's boyfriend, he simply said, no, she can't live with us, you know, and I'm the baby. So imagine what they did to me at 13 years old. I can't go live with my mother. So I'm living with the oldest sibling, and there is nothing but cocaine use. I mean, I'm talking, Ryan, violence, like, you know, some of those videos you see posted on Facebook, that type of violence where the siblings were stabbing each other and busting each other. So I'm talking about bloodshed, like you never want to see it inside of a household. So I'm living there, and the same guy that was alleged to be my sister's boyfriend was living there too. So I think day one, I was lying on the floor watching the Jeffersons, and he walked in and he said, your booty done got big. Now here's the thing. I didn't say anything because, let's back up. When he said at 9 years old, I'm going to get your sisters, I remember him coming into me and my other sister's bedroom and taking off his robe and showing his naked body. And when I went to tell my father and mother, my father's words were, go sit your fast ass down somewhere. You should not have been playing with him. So imagine that. I'm 9. I'm standing there being accused of something I didn't do. That silenced me. I never said another word about anything, because if I told my mother and my father and they didn't believe me, hell, nobody else is going to believe me. That's how a child would think. So now fast forward back to me being this little 13-year-old girl, you know, being abandoned by my mother because she just, when I saw that car pull off, Ryan, that was it. I didn't see my mom for a while, maybe a year passed. So we're living with my sister, and again, he's there. So the penetration child molestation actually started, it was Easter 1985. I still remember the year, still remember the holiday. That's how traumatizing it was, because the next morning, now keep in mind, I'm a virgin. So the next morning when I woke, and he had ejaculated in me and everything, you know. So I woke up in the morning, tell you how naive I was. I said to my oldest sibling, I said, what is this white stuff coming out of me? Mm-hmm. And she just said discharge. Now, had she been thinking, she would have said, what do you mean, what's this white stuff coming out of you? And she would have examined me. But see, they were on drugs. You know, all of my siblings were on drugs, because look at where they come from. You know, I'm the youngest. So if I got abused, imagine what they got, right? You know, it don't start with the last child. It starts with the first child. So living there, that abuse went on for about a year, him sexually abusing me, you know, and then I'm thinking a year later, this is what he did to show my older siblings the threat that he made when I was 9. This is what he did. He came in the dining room, because we were sleeping in the dining room. He came in there and he said, Kelly, come in the living room. So I go in the living room. He told me to take all of my clothes off, lay on the couch. My sister was right on the floor, asleep. And once he went inside me, he kicked her to wake her up, to show her, I told you I was going to get your little sisters. This is how mentally unstable he was as a human being. So I got blamed. I got beat up, constantly called bitch, stupid, whore, you ain't gonna be nothing. And the verbal abuse went on, oh my God, like it felt like forever to me. So I think a couple of days later, that was my first time trying to commit suicide. I went into the bathroom and took a whole bunch of pills. I don't know what they were. Took a whole bunch of pills. The police officers came. They filed charges against Nippy. And then we went to court, and back then there was really no strict laws. You just got, you know, probation, and that was pretty much it. He didn't go to jail. But even after that, what's ironic is this, Ryan, he molested 3 of us, and I don't mention the other sister name because she is still alive. But he molested the sister Lisa, myself, and then the other sister. The sad part was when we got evicted from the place we were living from the drug use, we moved to the projects on 44th and Cottage Grove. The oldest sibling put me out. And hey, let me say this in case someone in my family sees this. This is not to discredit anybody in my family. This is not to speak negative of anybody in my family. I love my sisters. We were all products of abuse. I am simply sharing my story. This is not to hurt my family. Please do not take it that way. Okay? So the oldest sibling, she put me out, and guess where I wound up living? With the child molester. Yeah, because mom's was nowhere around. My father told me I couldn't live with him. And I remember living with friends, you know, when she put me out, staying 2 weeks here and there. And until it was at a point where you need to go home. And I remember her saying, bitch, you can't live here with me. And right at that moment, the child molester's walking up, and I'm out there with a little suitcase. And he said, why are you out here? I said, my sister said I can't live with her. And he took me with him. So now here I am, this 14-year-old girl, just like my sister was, thinking this is my boyfriend. Now he's like, he was 9 years older than my sister. My sister's 5 years older than me. So I don't know, add 2, maybe he's about 11 years older than me. How are you somebody's boyfriend? You're 14. This man is about 26, 25, 26. I lived in this house for 3 years, Ryan, locked in this little room. This little room was just a bed. I remember a hole being in the floor with the water bugs used to crawl up, and there's a piece of wire he was sticking there. I was literally stuck in that room. I could not come out that room unless I was going to the bathroom, which was right across. You walk out the bedroom, walk straight to the bathroom, or to go to school. And the reason he did that, and I didn't put this together until I was older, was because his auntie, the person we was living with, she knew he was a child molester. So he had to keep me hid from her. But see, me being a kid, I didn't know these things. And another revelation I found when I wrote my book was that he would drug me. And I didn't learn this until I was 38 when I'm writing the book, because he would always say, do you want some milk or do you want some orange juice? And I'd go to sleep, Ryan. I'd wake up, underwear be wet, and I'd be like, why are my underwear wet? Now I know some sex happened, because I know this is sex now. You know, you ejaculate and you leaving sperm. How did I not wake up? He was drugging me. I'd go to school. I mean, it was so horrible over there, Ryan, just the whole thought of being physically abused and raped on a regular. By the time I was 17, he finally let me out that room to meet his auntie. And you know what she told me? She said, you wasn't 17 when you came here, baby. Where your parents at? Where's your mother? Where's your sister? Where's your family at? Because she knew her nephew was a child molester. She knew it, you know. And so thereafter, I think around 18, so I'm there from like 15 to 18. I finally, I called my grandma one day. It was on Thanksgiving, and she told me my mother was there. And immediately I'm like, oh, I'm getting the hell out of this house, because I'm a teenager now, and I'm in high school, and, you know, I got a little job and stuff like that, and I'm looking cute, and I see these cute boys in high school, and I'm like, I'm getting the hell out of this house, because I want to be a teenager. This is not right. I started to think, like, something's not right in here. Because I remember when I told him I was leaving, he actually shot a gun at my foot. He beat me up, put a knife to my neck. You know, this dude was really trying to keep me like hostage in his house. And I had to like escape. A friend of mine that was working at Reggio's Pizza, I called her, told her what was going on. And she met me like, I don't know, maybe down the street somewhere. When she saw him leave, she called the phone and I ran out the door. I never looked back. I made it to my grandma's house. But let me tell you, that is when all the drama began. That is when I realized how angry I was, how much hate I had for my mother, how much I disrespected her, how much I wanted to kill my entire family. You know, that's when my true, the anger, or this person that I wouldn't ever go back to being, this angry person came out. And I'll tell you, it was truly monstrous. It really was. You know, I hit my mother, you know, and then by 22, this is now, I'm so depressed, because at this time, even though I know something's not right at this house, Ryan, I still don't know it's child molestation. I still don't know it's sexual abuse. So the sibling who forced me to do all these things, she was living with me. And I can clearly remember me and her getting into a really big argument. She's like, you nasty bitch, you whore, you slut, and blah, 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 blah. And I was crying. And my auntie Pat came over, and she's like, what's wrong? And I told her, I say, you know, Lisa keep calling me these names. She keep telling me I slept with her boyfriend and blah, blah, blah. And that day was the truth, which is a chapter in my book. She said, baby, that was child molestation. Your parents, your mother shouldn't have never, she said, your mother shouldn't have never left you. She had no damn business leaving you to begin with. And your siblings, they all opened the door for that. At that moment, Ryan, I went from feeling like, I was just sleeping with my sister's man, feeling like a whore, to feeling like an ant on a rock, the lowest thing, like the armpit of society. Because now, not only did I not sleep with my sister's boyfriend, but I've been sexually abused and blamed for it. Immediate I attempted suicide. I spent time in Tinley Park. I spent 5 days over there at Tinley Park, and it still didn't get better, because you're talking about somebody who went 9 years blaming themselves for something that they didn't do, So by the time I was, 22, attempted suicide. I was dating married men. I had still had a lot of lust for women. I was truly a confused individual. I had no self-esteem, no confidence. I've slept with over 100 men, countless women. And when I say slept with them anywhere, in the alley, in the bathroom, anywhere, this is how unstable I was. Because when a child is introduced to sex at such a young, early age, no different than heroin, that's what you're going to do. I had become in the mindset that sex was going to get me love. And so I started sleeping with a lot of men. I started abusing alcohol. I'd get drunk and bend over on a car and let men have sex with me. It was horrible. It was horrible. And by the time I was 26, I met this young lady named Annalisa. I was working at University of Chicago. I was actually stripping at this time, again, using my body to make money, because all I have is my body. I don't understand the concept of the mind, the concept of a brain, other than through school. But I don't understand how beautiful I really am as a person. I truly don't understand or respect my body, because I'm not worthy of respect, because this is what I've been taught, So this young lady would always say, Kelly, just come to church, just come to church, just come to church. And finally, I got on a schedule where I could come to church. And let me tell you, when I went in there, Ryan, I would just go up to the altar. I would get on my knees, because keep in mind, we grew up in church, but we didn't grow up religious. We didn't grow up, God is the person you go to. We didn't grow up like that. It was just go to church and that's it. But when I went in there, I was old enough to know that there has to be something bigger than me, because what I'm feeling, I don't know how to get rid of it. So I would get on my knees and I would just break down and cry, and I would just beg the universe, please help me. Please help me love myself. Teach me what love is. Please help me forgive. Teach me what forgiveness is. I would have all these things, like I didn't know where it was coming from, but I knew I was tired of being miserable. I was tired of sleeping with every Tom, Dick, and Harry and every female, and drinking. I was just tired of having the physical ailments that I was creating, ulcers and migraine headaches and irritable bowel syndrome and colitis, all these physical diseases I produced from these negative emotions, So by the time 26, 28, I learned how to pray. I learned how to forgive. So by 28 years old, I had completely forgiven my abusers. Forgiven. And all I did was release the anger, release the pain, and release the resentment. My mom and I, we established our relationship. I took care of her for the last 18 years of her life, and we became very close around. We shopped together. We double dated together. We dinner dates. We became mother and daughter. And the reason that happened is because I wanted it. See, I remember prior to that man living in our house, I remember my mother telling me, I love you. I remember my father saying, I love you. I remember them saying, you're so pretty, you're so smart. I remember those good things. And that's what I wanted back. So my focus was to forgive, so that I can have a relationship with the mom that I know loved me. And I did that. Rest us up.
That and that's I'm glad that obviously you had a bigger purpose, or those pills didn't work. And
and they didn't work twice.
Well, there you go. See, because I've since talking to you for the over the last couple of years, every time I see someone, a male or a female, commit suicide, and it's like, man, they had a great life. Things were going good, but they just kill themselves. I wonder. It always makes me wonder, especially if they don't leave a note and they don't say anything. It's like, wait a minute, this person was happy-go-lucky. Like Sam said. Well, you know
no,
what? I know they might not have been on the inside, but Sam's friends, they talked about him in high school. And they talked about him and how he always had a smile on his face and he always had this.
Me too.
So when they would hear these things, they were like, are you freaking kidding me? You were going through all that?
And the smiles, Ryan, the smiles were really to hide the pain. I did that. If you were to talk to any of my high school friends, many would say she smiled a lot, but many would also say she was angry and didn't know why. That smile is really just to cover the pain. The smile is to keep from crying. That's what that smile is for. It's to keep from breaking down, from feeling. It's like you hear the term worthless. You don't understand that term unless you actually feel it. People throw that term around. When you really feel worthless and hopeless, you will commit suicide. You will, because there is nothing else. There is nothing else. If you have no value on your life, what is the purpose of living? And the smile is just really just to keep you going, because every day you're going home and you're crying. You're going home and you're drinking, or you're using drugs, or you're having sex, or you're developing these compulsive behaviors, or you're overeating. You're doing something to fill that hole, to help remove that pain. And I did it all. I had the overeating. I was up to about 170 pounds. I was eating everything, sleep with everybody, drinking. I just never really got into cocaine or heroin, but I smoked a lot of marijuana, breakfast, lunch, and dinner before I even ate. That was my escape, because it was like, I used to ask myself, why am I even here? I'm worthless. Like, nobody loves me. Nobody will ever love me. What is my purpose of being on this earth? I would ask that question. And I'll tell you, I'm going to fast forward really quick. By 35, keep in mind, all I did was forgave my abusers. And forgiving somebody doesn't mean you know who you are. It just means you just release pain, anger, and resentment. You're no longer holding on to that. But I didn't know who I was still at 28. I had no idea who I was. All I knew was I had gone through a lot of pain. I wasn't taking no more pain from nobody. You do something to me, I'm gonna get you back. I became very vengeful. I had this the selfish attitude. It was like, I don't give a shit. I mended the relationship with my mother, Nippy. It doesn't bother me if I were to see the man walking down the street. He's not going to penetrate me because he no longer controls my emotions. I'm okay with what happened. But some of the others, like the older siblings, those relationships weren't really mended. It was mainly my mother and the child molester. But by the time I was 35 and taking that 28 to 35 span, not knowing who I am, still just drinking, still seeking love, desperately seeking love from a man, not really loving myself, not having self-esteem, just moving through working this job and working that job and going to school, trying to keep busy because I didn't want to sit with myself, Ryan. I didn't want to sit with myself. I didn't want to see how badly I was damaged. I didn't want to see who the hell I was. Like, who was I? So at 35, I lost my place in Calumet Park. And this is when I had to sit with myself. I lost my place, had a back injury, was in a wheelchair, couldn't walk for 6 months. And I always said God was punishing me. I was dumb. Let me rephrase that. I was ignorant or naive, because God don't punish nobody, but I was ignorant. But that was my saying. So I moved in with my mom. I slept in her bed for 8 months with her and my son. The energy there was just so negative. And I'm trying to find myself. I'm 35. I'm only 44. So that was only 9 years ago. So I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to put these pieces back together, all these broken pieces. This heart is shattered. This mind is confused, and I'm trying to realign myself with my soul. Who am I? And it got so bad over there, just with the two of the siblings living in the negative energy, the drugs and the arguments, and just the volatile and the codependency. I took about 15 Darvocets. I wrote a note. And I went out and I was drinking, and all I could think about was how horrible life was. I took 15 Darvocets. This was medicine that was prescribed for me for my back. I wrote a letter, and I think I said something to the nature, I'm tired of living. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And I remember sitting that piece of paper on this octagon table that belonged to my son. It was red, blue, green, yellow. It was an octagon table. I set the letter right there. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock when I came, and I took the pills and I just sat there. Now, here is how I know I have a purpose in life. Here is how I know that there is a God. Here's how I know. The sister who molested me, the woman, the oldest that was on drugs, she went out and got high every weekend. She never came home before 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock. Never. The other sister that was living there never answered the door. Whenever the one sister be out there beating on the door at 4 o'clock in the morning, that other sister didn't move. She let her beat the door until she woke up or my mother woke up, and that was it. This is how God worked. That day, Lisa came home at 1 o'clock. Mabel answered the door. Tell you how good God is. When Lisa walked in, she came straight in the kitchen and she said, "What the hell is this?" She banged on my mother's door. "Mama, Kelly wrote this letter out here and I think she's trying to kill herself." And Mabel looking like, "What did you do?" My mother came out there and she said, "Baby, what you do?" I just sat there because I'm waiting to die. Because I know what Darvocet does. 15, it's going to attach to your liver. It's going to destroy your liver. I was serious at 35. No games. So my mom called the ambulance, and right when I got there and they ran my values, my liver enzymes were so high because the Darvocet was attaching to it. Plus the alcohol didn't help. They told me, had you got here minutes later, you'd be in intensive care, getting your stomach pumped and possibly dead. Show you how God works. Let me just repeat that. A sister that never comes home before 4, and the other sister that never answers the door. Came home 3 hours earlier, and the other sisters answered. I have a purpose in life. So the way I see it now, Ryan, nothing happened to me. It happened for me. And through the grace of God, the universe, I'm here to share these things. You know, it is what makes me an expert in this area because I've lived it. You know, I don't think there's anything out here that I haven't experienced. And so I understand my purpose. My purpose is to help people heal, be the light for them, be the beacon for them. Hey, this is what I experienced, but look at me today. Have some faith, you know, stay in your love space, forgive, and you can do just about anything you want to do. I am truly a walking testimony.
Yeah, you are. Actually. So let me. Okay, so at what point did you decide to write the book? Did somebody say you need to write to get this out of you? Is that what it was?
Yeah,
okay.
I did a speaking engagement at 38 years old, and a friend of mine, Jerry Mason, he was a married man that I was dating, but we just kind of stayed friends, you know, not anything else other than just cool. And he invited me downtown to do a presentation to a group of people who were graduating from school, like computer literacy, life skills, and stuff like that. And when I shared my story, it was how they received me. It was how they embraced it. And Jerry walked over to me and he said, "You know, you should write a book." And I was like, ain't nobody writing no book. I think 8 or 9 months passed by. I was sitting at my computer, and it felt like my brain was like on Wall Street. I literally felt like it was a million words in my head. And I was like, is that the book? So I called Jerry and I said, okay, I'll write the book. He helped me with the first maybe 20 or 30 pages. And I would just go back and keep rereading. And I'm trying to find a reason. Why am I writing this? And I'm looking at my own words and I'm like, okay, this is my story. Why am I writing it? It didn't dawn on me that I needed to write this book until I was in probably chapter 5. That my story was millions of people's stories. And my drive was so in overflow, I wrote the book in 4 months. Because at that point I knew, oh, this is something that happens often. I got friends that went through this. Now that I know what it is, You know, I got guy friends that went through this and female friends that went through this, and then my family. Oh my God, all of my siblings, they are my first audience. Let me write the book. Let me help my family. I didn't realize it was going to become an international seller. Didn't know that. And it is right now. That first book is an international seller. So the drive just really came from, you know, just reading my own story, looking at it, and then looking at all the people out here who mimicked me. You know what I'm saying? That's my son calling, Ryan. Hold on.
Okay. I'll go ahead. Yeah.
Hey, Peanut, do me a favor. Start walking because I'm on the interview, okay? Just run up. And just cut through the little thing, okay? All right, bye. I'm sorry, I had to go. My son was playing basketball, but I'm good. He just wanted to let me know he was on his way home. Okay. Sorry about that, you guys. But so yeah, my drive just really came from during I'm writing the book, not any time before, other than I think the universe told Jerry to tell me to write a book. Because prior to that, I think I've only had one conversation with a friend of mine living in Cal Park, and I just said one day I'm going to write a book. I planted the seed, but I didn't know it was going to happen. And so now I have 3 books written, well, 5 books written, 3 published, and 1 more be released sometime in the winter. But it's been a phenomenal road.
You know, and you know, it's funny. That's the reason why I asked that, is because I got some buddies that, you know, maybe they didn't go through that, but they went through certain issues. And you know, for instance, I was working at a car lot. I was selling cars, and one of our guys who I'm looking at him in the face, and I'm like, what's wrong? I mean, it's not his normal look, and I mean, even though it was some of his own doing, but and I was like, hey man, let's go to lunch. Let's go. Yeah. You know, let's just get in the car, let's roll, and let's talk about what's going on. You know, not that I can do anything about it, but just letting him talk. I literally watched the stress and all this up in his face just drop out. And that's why, you know, and you never know what a person's thinking, because a lot of times they don't tell you. And so that's why I know that, you know, talking to you, talking to other people, you know, I'll let people talk. And because sometimes, you know, they just need to holler at somebody. I put my number out there on Facebook, like, hey, if you're thinking about doing something to yourself, call me. I'll hold the phone. You know, whatever happens. And if I gotta crack a joke or something to make you laugh, or this, that, the other, even this, you know, I'm not much of a crying type person, but you know, but I'll listen. You know, but okay, so I just can already just assume how many people have contacted you and just said, oh my God.
Thousands.
Matter of fact, somebody left a comment, this, like, you know, Kelly Porter's amazing spirit, who's very connected to her ability to relate, you know, just phenomenal person, right? And I'm sitting there like, okay, you know, and I know that these things happen, and you're right, you know, and I've told people that, and I don't necessarily know that I told them that knowing why I told them that, but I've said years before I met you, you know, maybe, you know, I think MySpace was still around, and I remember this one girl was telling me some of the things that happened to her, and I said, you know what? Maybe, and I've never been in your situation. I don't know your situation like that. I don't know what you feel on the inside, but you know, you keep saying that God didn't do this, and I'm not saying that God made somebody rape you, or God made somebody, you know, molest you, or this, that, and the other. But what I am saying is, maybe that happened to you, and so that you can help somebody else.
Yes. So can I elaborate? Can I elaborate on that?
Absolutely.
This is my belief, Ryan. I firmly believe that the moment we come out of our parents' womb, there is a purpose for us. We are, and I wouldn't say the hierarchy, because we're just as equal as the animals. But if the bees have a purpose, the trees have a purpose, you know, the flowers have a purpose, and pollen have a purpose, humans have to have a purpose. So I believe the moment we come out of our parents' womb, there is our purpose. But this is what I also believe. I believe we sign up for the life that we experience. And I also believe that our experiences are created, whether they're good, bad, or ugly. The experiences are created so that when we do get to a point where we're trying to align our person with our spirit, those experiences help us find our purpose. But see, the problem is people attach to the negative. Like, I could have easily been an angry person. I could have easily hated all men. I could have easily hated women. I could have easily hated myself, as I did at one point. But why? Why would I do that? You know, I am an amazing person. I am human, and just the physiological processes of the body is just amazing. So why not look at the positive? Why not look at what it's taught me? You know, through all of this, I've learned how to trust. I've learned how to love. I've learned how to have hope. I've learned how to have faith. You know, I've learned to believe in myself and people. You know, my self-esteem is great. My confidence. I've learned to become my authentic self. So without those experiences, I couldn't tell you who I would be. I would not be an author without those experiences. I would not be a life coach. I would not be able to do Silence No More seminars. I would not be able to speak at the prisons and the schools and the universities. I would not be able to do the things I'm doing today had I not signed up for the experiences. My purpose was at birth. So in coaching, one of the assignments that I do, as we're going through their experiences, knowing that you have a purpose at birth, I call it remember, R-E, go back, member, put yourself back together. You have to put yourself back together through those experiences, because through that, there is a lot of positive, but we attach to the negative. And this is why people are having difficulties finding their purpose, because they're attaching to the bad. He raped me, she beat me, he put me out. You know, we're attaching to all the negative energy. How can you find your purpose through negative energy? You cannot. I had to go back and find everything possibly possible that would be positive, that I could recreate and redesign myself. And I did that. So yes, these things didn't happen to me. They happened for me. I'm very happy today. You know, I'm at peace and life is good now, you know?
I can see it, and it's coming through, and you know, so now that you know things are going well. I mean, I know that you got married a couple years ago, and I know that's in a story in itself. From I've seen some videos on that, and that blew my mind. I mean, I don't know if we need to talk about that or not, but that literally blew my mind, because
my husband's elected as well. Yeah,
that was the first time, I'm telling you, when I watched that video with the cards. When the cards went up, I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I literally said, I didn't know that men were molested.
And let me tell you, Ryan, let me tell you, and I'll tell you how good God is, the universe is too. You know, a lot of people say, you know, you meet somebody, you think everybody's your soulmate. No, a lot of people are just lessons, you know, and blessings, you know. But
that was funny. And you know what? Not only was it just funny, but your whole expression about it was even funnier.
Yeah, because people are, oh, that's my soulmate. No, that's a lesson. And you just need to get the lesson and then move on. That's it. Quit claiming everybody. But like, look at Pat. Look at Pat, right? Pat has gone through the exact same thing that I've gone through. He's been molested by 3 women. His parents didn't raise him. His daddy wasn't there. He slept with a bunch of women. He abused alcohol. We have synonymous stories on opposite sides of the, you know, the state, 2-year age difference, doing completely different things, you know, but we come together. And my husband found out what happened to him when he read my book. And let me tell you, it's been really challenging, because now you're trying to tell somebody they're molested and the person they are isn't who they're supposed to be. Really? You know, imagine somebody been, I'm 44, my husband's 46. I met him at 40. So imagine somebody been 42 and you telling them, no, you're not the person you're supposed to be. No, this is not who you are, you know. And imagine that, the challenges that I was faced with, but the fact that I had healing in me, you know, I had healed from everything he experienced. So guess what I did? I just gave him my healing, walked him through things. It was very challenging. It was some moments where I wanted to divorce him. Look, I'm gonna need you to get out Right now, I ain't signed up for this shit. You know what I'm saying? You know, it was moments like that, but you have to expect
right. You weren't looking for a 24-hour client.
Hell no. But you know what?
I get it.
Yeah, but going through these experiences with Patrick has given me more purpose. It's given me more purpose because through my husband's pain, I get to see a man's pain. I get to see how the man suffers. It's very synonymous to a woman, but the major difference is men are, it's more like walled off completely. You know, a woman may say, you know, or a man may say a woman's walled off. No, you ain't seeing walled off until you see a broken man. He ain't letting you in there, period. It's a lot of fear. You know, it's a lot of discord. It's a lot of ego, and ego is nothing but fear. And I'm going to tell you, it was very, very challenging, but I love my husband because my husband has given me purpose. He has inspired me to want to do work with more men. You know, watching him and through his pain, you know, and I really believe God put me with him so that we could be the voice for the man and the woman, you know, but it takes time because it's not easy for a man to just stand up and say, you know, yeah, I was molested by 3 women. I hated women, didn't trust women, you know, disrespected all my wives and didn't give a shit. It's not hard for a man to just be that transparent and that vulnerable. You know, it's not easy. And so it's a work in process for Patrick, but I absolutely love it, right? I love this experience because he's growing me. I've grown to be patient. You know, I'm a lot more compassionate. You know, he's taught me to stay in my love space, to stay in my spirit. Don't let your ego out because he's suffering. And how dare me judge somebody's suffering? How dare I do that, right? When I went through the exact same thing. So how could I look or frown upon him when I was him? I was him. So his experience and his pain has really given me so much gratitude to the universe for blessing me with him. Because now I know how, if my husband is acting out, and I'll just say, okay, baby, you know, I hear that. That's okay. You know, I don't have to give energy to it because I know what it is. You know, it's not like I'm a woman who don't understand the after effects of abuse. I understand them. I know what they look like. I know what they sound like. You know, I know what they feel like. So if my husband have one of his moments, okay, babe, you want to cry? You know, I'll stand here. You can cry. You want some water? You know, and I'm just going to sit next to you. You want to have a moment where, you know, you want to lose trust for 5 minutes? Okay. Well, when Patrick come back, we could talk because this is not Patrick right now. I don't go into the fits like the average woman would be because I know what's happening. So look at that blessing that he's given me. You know, look at the education that he's given me, the empowerment that he's given me just being married to him. So I'm absolutely grateful for all of my experiences, from the man that was beating my ass. I'm grateful for him. You know, my son's father, who was very emotionally abusive and controlling. You know, I'm grateful for these things because all of this knowledge and power that I have, you know, pain is power. It is not to be your demise.
Now, how did when you first came out with the first book, Perfectly Planned? First of all, I love the cover. What made you come up with the cover of that book? I mean, because
you know what?
It just you know, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's different. And so I mean, it's coming from a different place. But what made you come up with that, or did you not come up with it and you just told somebody and they came up with it? How did you come up with that?
Well, when I was having the book published, I told the publisher, I said, I want something where it's like a woman is locked up or something, like she's trying to get out, because that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to escape the hands of a pedophile in that little room. Can't get out, nowhere to go, no family, I'm rejected, I'm trying to get out. So all I could tell them was, I didn't know they were going to come up with this image, but I did say I want it to be something where I'm locked in this room, or I'm trying to get out. And when the publisher showed me, I was like, that's it. It's perfect, because that was me, locked up in this room, trying to get out in all this pain with no way out. And that's where the cover come from. And then the title, I was actually doing a magazine interview. I didn't even have a title for the book. And I'm doing this interview, and I told the young lady, I said, my life was perfectly planned by the Lord himself. I said, oh, there go the title.
Right.
Didn't even have a title. And the reason why a lot of people thought it was obscure, but look at it. The only thing is perfect is the universe. That's it. God, the infinite, whatever you decide to call it. And I think everything's planned. There are no mistakes. Everything is exactly the way it is supposed to be. Perfectly planned. I got exactly what I was supposed to get.
Now, did you catch a lot of flack when you first came out of the book from your family when you first came out?
Oh yeah. No one agreed with it because it was fear. It was the fear, and a lot of egos came out with, I'm going to sue you, and I'm going to disown you, and blah 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 blah. And I tried to stay in my love space, but I wanted them to truly just understand it's not about hurting you. It's really just about, and what's even more important, I didn't realize the release when I wrote that book. The release of being able to say the things that I couldn't say when I was a child. I'm talking from a child's perspective in that book. And I was able to release these things. So they were more so like, oh, she's going to put my business out there. People are going to know this. I couldn't concern myself. And I didn't do it in a selfish way, Ryan, because I never want to hurt my family. So I didn't do it in a selfish way. I just kind of said, I'm sorry you feel that way, but this book is coming out. And believe it or not, a few years later, my book has changed my family's life. It's changed their lives. And
because I know black families, and black families, we tend to keep everything secret. I know you ain't saying nothing about our family. My mama would be like, hey, library voice. I'm like, Ma, we at home. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's how it was. But they're grateful today, though. They're grateful because through this book, the sibling that's closer to me, she was able to heal. It took some time, but she was able to see her truth and really heal and, release some things from her life. My brother, he's in a healing state. He actually asked me to help him write a book, because he wants to start sharing some things. The older sibling was sharing things on Facebook. So they were my audience. But the sad part, my sister Lisa, she died last year. She never got a chance to free herself from what I call the strangulation of child molestation. She went 35 years with that secret. And when I came out, my story, I had only just found out maybe a couple of years prior to that my father had been molesting her. She kept that secret for 35 years. 35 years. Imagine the stress being put on the body. She developed lupus, end-stage renal disease, and then eventually she died with the blood clot in her lung. But here's my saying. She was dead before she died. She, my brother Dale, my mother, they never got the chance to free themselves. They never got the chance to see what happiness was, what freedom was, what forgiveness was. And they're gone now. And so that book just really resonated in my heart, Ryan. It did what I wanted it to do, free my family.
And I'm gonna tell you, you know what? And that's why, like that serial rapist guy that we had in our city, in my city, and when that young lady had reached out and was talking about her whole entire family, that she was giving a backstory. She was like, wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. I need to get you to talk to Kelly. Because because I knew when she was telling me, I'm like, wait a minute, this story sounds very, very, very similar. And so I gotta have, even though he did some bad things, he killed some women, he raped some women, he did these things, my compassion or empathy, whichever is the right word here, said to me, he was going through something. And
oh yeah, let me tell you something, Ryan. And I know people can be so harsh and lacking compassion completely. Let me say this. There's no way you cause pain unless you're living in pain. Think about that. If I am filled with love, what am I going to give?
Right, love.
If I am filled with pain, what am I going to give? You can only give off what's inside of you. What's the saying? You put in a relationship, you get out of a relationship, what you put into it. Okay, I'm a person. I'm going to give off exactly what I have in me. So do I know if he was molested? Well, we know he was, but is that always the case? It's not always the case that a person has been sexually abused, they're going to go out and be a repeat offender or become an abuser. But I do know this. They're going to be angry. They're going to be upset. They're going to be If they don't get help, they're going to be angry. They're going to be living in fear. They're going to be emotionally closed off. You know, they're going to create a lot of discord, and they're going to hurt people. Yes, they are. They're going to wreak havoc. I wreaked havoc on a lot of men. A lot of them. To the point of wanting to kick my ass.
See, now you laughing. They like, and see, you got them going through. You need to reach out to all of them and be like, hey,
I tried to make amends to as many people as I could in my book. And so now a lot of people that, you know, and half of them, I don't even remember, sleep with half of them. So I don't know. You know, they walked up now like, we slept, nigga, you're lying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. You know, but I'm going to say you're lying. Sorry. I remember that. You know, sorry to say that though. But it's like you only give off what's inside of you. And it's like people lack compassion. I have compassion for the man that molested me because he was suffering. You know, I have compassion for my sister. I have compassion for the dude that was raping and killing those women because he's suffering. A person that's giving pain is suffering more than the pain that they can give to the person. They're suffering more. Because if I love you, I'm only going to give you love. If I hate myself and I'm filled with anger, well, I'm going to give you all of it. I'm going to give you exactly what's inside of me. We have to have compassion for people like that. We just do. It's not an easy thing to do because, you know, you got little babies out here being raped. The natural response or the natural reaction is anger and you become mad. But, you know, sometimes you just have to stand back, you know, just give yourself a few moments and just say, hey, you know, I'm sorry for the baby, but you got two people suffering. You got a family and you have this person who's committing these crimes. These people are hurting. No one is giving off anger and pain unless you're living with it daily. No one. And I would tell a psychologist that. I would tell, I don't care what kind of degree you got. Don't come in my face trying to tell me, oh, they just did that. No, let's go into their history. Let's see what went on with them. They brought some pain from whatever stage, whether it's childhood, teenagers, early 20s. They brought some pain with them, some unhealthy, some unresolved issues. And all they doing is just putting it into the universe. That's all they're doing. You know, I did it.
And see, now you said that you go. You said that you've been into the prisons and you've talked. Mm-hmm. So,
yes. Prime example.
How did that go? I mean, how did that go?
Let me tell you the statistics first. 95% of it was women's prison. 95% of the women in prison have a history of abuse. 85% have a history of sexual abuse. So here's the thing. Majority of them are repeat offenders. Why? Because the root has not been touched. Stealing, alcohol, marijuana, drugs, compulsive, you know, gambling, eating, those are symptoms of a real problem. And until you attack the real problem, you're going to always have the symptoms. So these ladies were repeat offenders constantly. They get out, they go right back, get out, because they're using the drug to escape the pain, the root problem. And here's another thing. A lot of the women that go into these rehab facilities, 70% of those women are not even talking about or are not even asked what happened in the childhood. These rehab drug facilities, they're only dealing with the issue of drugs. That's not the problem. The problem is, why are you on drugs? What are you trying to escape? That is a coping mechanism. But in the prison system, I ain't gonna lie, when I first walked in there, yeah, I was scared. I was like, oh, Lord, I'm gonna need a bubble around me because I was kind of scared going in there. You know what I mean? Walking past all those women, I was like, ooh, I had to brace myself and breathe, you know? And they were all in there for minor crimes, minor stuff. You know, petty little larcenies or whatever you want to call, thefts or domestic violence or stealing, minor stuff. And half of them were repeats. And here's another thing. What I didn't like about the facility was, of course, the government is funding the facility. You know that. They don't really have a rehab in there for them women. They're not being rehabbed. They have a therapist coming in on Friday and talk to them, and they send them back to their cell or to their little room or wherever they go. Nobody's being rehabbed. Nobody's really being helped. And you know what they told me? What was her name? She was one of the sheriffs there. Olsen, whatever her name was. She told me that we can't share too much because we don't want to bring out or open up some wounds in them. Really? You don't want to open the wound? Then you don't want to help them.
Yeah, you're not trying to help. You're you're not trying to help them, because you got to get, you got to. I mean, and I'm not even an expert, but I know one thing: to solve a problem, you got to get to the root of it.
You have to get, and they're not. They're
a solution. You got to dig.
You got to dig. Exactly. You have to dig. They're not doing that. And
sometimes you got to dig into their unconscious.
The subconscious. The subconscious.
Subconscious.
Yes,
that's
you do.
The word. Exactly.
You do.
Because they could have been 1-2 years old and don't know why they doing these things.
Exactly. So they're not helping them in it. So that offended me, and I didn't want to go back in there, because my thing is this, Ryan. As a life coach, I dig deep. And I expect my clients to come honest, transparent, and vulnerable. Because the only way I'm gonna help you is I need to know exactly what happened. No lies. Give me all of it so I can help you through it. And in that prison system, they're not doing that. So I refuse to go back down there. If I can't come in and teach the way I want to teach, then I'm not coming. I'm not going to help you keep institutionalizing people. I'm not going to help you do that. So when the sheriff emailed me about coming back down, I just, politely declined. It's not for me. That's not for me. I'm not going to go in there and sell these girls hopes and dreams. Tell them, you just cry one day, it's going to be okay. Just talk about what happened last week. No, you need to talk about what happened when you were 7. When you was molested, how do you feel? When your mother watched this person do this to you, or when your father did it to you, you need to talk about these things. They didn't want me to do these things. So I declined to go back. I'm not going to help you, keep this revolving door, because the prison system is a business. And I learned that, and it really turned me off.
I can believe that. I can believe it, because, hearing all these different things, and I'm not saying that, is all, some people I think are just jacked up. I think they were perfectly planned in a messed up way from birth for whatever reason. I mean, but, I listened to the sheriff of Cook County when he was on Windy City Live about a year ago or something, and he's crying out to the governor and to the mayor, and he's saying, hey, you know what? Here's the deal. He was like, we need to reopen these mental facilities. He was like, 35-40% of these prisoners that under my care, they don't need to be here.
No, they don't. They don't need to be in there.
He said they don't even want to leave.
You're getting $48,000 per inmate.
Who the heck don't want to leave prison? He said some of these cats,
they get 3 meals.
He said they get the medications they need, and once they get out back on the street, they get none of that. Exactly.
And it's set up that way.
Saying, please. He said we need these beds for people who just don't. But 35% of these people need to be in a hospital or getting care.
Yes, I agree. And then look at that. Look at the dynamics of that. If you recreate mental facilities or institutions, then you're pulling a lot of the prison population out. So what does that do? That take money from them. That's too many $48,000 per year, being taken from them. So I mean, at the end of the day, I have a lot of my clients have either attempted suicide or thought about it, and I always tell them this, Ryan, because personally speaking, I don't necessarily believe in manic depression. I don't believe in the anxiety attacks. I don't believe in any of these mental behaviors that the doctor has created so he can categorize you so he can get a paycheck. And the reason being is because imagine if like I teach my son, imagine if you're a child and the first time you hurt yourself, right? And you're told, go ahead and cry, release that pain. Don't hold it in, release. And as your child get older, imagine your child come to you saying, my feelings are hurt. This girl don't like me, or this boy don't like me. It's okay to cry, release that pain. Let's work through it. Imagine raising children like that. And then something catastrophic occurs like child molestation. The fact that the child is in tune with their feelings, once they express, they will be able to maneuver through these things. So when you look at anxiety attacks, when you look at depression, when you look at schizophrenia, whatever, I don't believe in that crap. It is just a simple inability to process, manage, and control your emotions. No, what do people say? Oh, get out your emotions. Oh, that ain't real. Really? That's what makes us human. That's the difference between us and the animal. We feel. We should be able to look at things and rationalize, you know, but we're not taught this. But imagine raising your child to be in tune with their emotions. Don't deny them. Don't be afraid of them. Go in them and feel the feeling. Imagine you telling your child this. So when they have these harsh things that occur, they know how to move through them. They know how to feel them. They don't suppress them and become angry and create all these emotional and mental blocks because they have the tools to move through. And when you don't have the tools, what do you create? Depression, panic and anxiety attacks, schizophrenia, bipolarism, whatever. Bipolarism is basically defined as your inability to not move through yourself. So I'm gonna create another self? No. I all that stuff is just the way to get money. You got 32 people. Oh, she cry a lot. She say she hopeless. You know, she don't take a bath. She don't eat. She overeat. Oh, let's call that depression. Let's get a check for it. How about we start teaching people how to feel? Really feel your feelings and stop being afraid of them. How about that? I developed irritable bowel syndrome. I developed ulcers. I developed migraines. I had colitis, panic and anxiety attacks. And that's the spiritual portion of it. You know, all of these things that I'm going through because I got these negative emotions. If someone had taught me to move through my feelings, I wouldn't have had none of that. I would have known how to work through. Suicide won't exist if you're taught to feel your feelings. Stop being afraid to go there. If you feel worthless, say it. I feel really worthless right now. How can you help me? I feel like scum of the earth. You know, I'm never gonna say these things. What do? We hold them in. We hold them in because society has created shame and embarrassment. Oh, I'm ashamed of you. Oh, that's embarrassing. Shut up. It don't exist. Shame and embarrassment. Shame of what? Embarrassed of what? We're human. But look at the commercials. Oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. TV. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Really? I don't live in shame and embarrassment. And we're taught to do that. We're taught to do that.
You know what? You're right. And you just made me think about something when I was in basic training. I was 18. And these people
right
without any melanation first of all, I got in trouble for what was the term? What did I get in trouble for? For being too, I gave immunizations. I was an immunization allergy technician. What does that mean? I did all the immunizations for the military members going overseas, going to Desert Shield, Storm, wherever, this, that, and the other. I also did all the immunizations for all the kids on the base, the dependents, from 0 all the way up to 5 years, and high school shots, the whole nine. I went in at a time when they were changing the way shots were given. Where we would give them in the arms, in the butts, and now we were starting to put them into the child's thighs. So there was a lot of people that didn't have that training or knowledge because it was something that was new and it was being tried out, because actually we were trained both ways. But they were like, hey, do it this way because this is where it's going. This is how we're going to be doing. Same thing as I came in at a time when they were outlawing the immunization, mass immunization gun. We didn't do that. Well, anyway, so I got written up 6 times for being rough with 2-month-olds. Why was I being rough? Well, the parents, mothers, of course, said I was too rough with their kids because I held their thighs down, hold their thighs firmly as I'm in the thigh. What do kids do? They kick.
They move.
They move. So you have to hold it to where it's permanent, because what do we have in the hospital? We have something called a papoose board.
That's right.
That when the kid, you can't get restraining kid, you got to put them down in some restraints to do some type of medical procedure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big enough at 6'1", 220, 30. I can actually hold a 2-month-old's thigh firmly enough. So
right.
6 times. Six times. And about the 4th time, I kept saying, well, what happens if I don't hold it firmly enough? And I got the needle in the kid's thigh, and he kicks or she kicks, and now it's a rip up the thigh.
Mm-hmm.
How much trouble am I going to get in then? I mean, because then now we're opening up a door for a lawsuit.
Exactly.
Now, I know as military members, I can't sue the military, but that dependent wife can.
Right.
Now, plus that's somebody's child. So would you rather for me to hold them a little bit tighter, or would you rather a slit down their thigh at 2 months?
Mm-hmm.
Look like they just had knee surgery, right? And so, and I'm trying to explain this over and over again. I'm the only one in my hospital with my job classification. So it's like, and the people who could give shots, they hadn't been to class to training to do this in years and years and years. They just, they would fill in if I was out on vacation or this, that, and the other. So about the 4th to 5th time. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't talk to nobody about this. That was the biggest issue. That's where I'm getting at. I didn't talk to anyone about this trouble I'm getting in. I'm standing in the captain's mm-hmm. office. I had LOC, LOR, and I was feeling, even though I knew I was right, it gave me a feeling of worthlessness and helplessness, because it was nothing I can do, because I'm sitting here. You can only try to explain yourself so much before you go, what the f-? Right? Now, here's the other thing.
Exactly.
I was born and raised in my mom's house. Stuff didn't come outside the house, right? But really nothing major happened in our house either, so I'm gonna say that too. But you didn't talk outside the house. So, but I didn't talk to my mom right. about this or anybody else, because I didn't want her to worry, and I knew there was nothing that she could do. So even if she knew, all I knew she would be doing is worrying. So I was keeping all this in. And so about the 4th, 5th time when I was going to the captain's office, everything came out of my mouth was a curse word. Was a go F yourself, go that. So now Airman Hodge is crazy. But because I'm like, look here, man, I score high on the test. I'm highly intelligent. I knew what you said the first time. I didn't get a lot of whoopings as kids because I didn't understand, right from wrong. Okay. You tell me one time and maybe I get in trouble for
right.
it. Unless I just don't give a shit, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it again. You know what I mean? I ain't bringing home 3 Fs no more. Trust me, I did that once. That was the last time. They said make it a wash. Yeah, you only need it one time, right? To take the garbage out of school. Not too many times to tell me to take the garbage out. So, do you think that I'm not listening to what you're saying, and you're saying the same thing, but how am I supposed to handle, and this is what I kept saying, how am I supposed to handle this? You keep saying I'm too rough, but I'm saying I have to hold the thighs to give the shots. So then I said, well, why don't you put somebody in my office? Why don't you put somebody with me, put some hidden cameras in my clinic so that maybe y'all can watch and look and you can see my interactions and this, that, and the other. None of that. It was just like, oh no, he's crazy. Let's kick him out. So before they kicked me out,
right,
or tried to kick me out rather, let me say that, reference that. I have an honorable discharge, okay? They sent me to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist do his little workups, do his evaluations, this, that, and the other. Mind you, the psychiatrist was also a patient of mine. Okay. And he says, so he does the workup, and then he comes back to me and he says, before I turn this into the captain, I want to talk to you about it. And I said, okay. He said, there's nothing wrong with you. I just want to let you know that. You're perfectly normal. You're perfectly sane. You're not going crazy. And then he says, you're on the verge of having a nervous breakdown. He was like, the fact that you are not talking to anyone about it You're holding that in. He said, listen, you're stressed out. Stress kills. That's why you're snapping off. And he said, this is in my report that I'm telling the captain. How many times can a person tell you what they're doing? And you're saying, no, you're not.
Exactly.
Anyway, from that point on, I vowed if something was bothering me to say something. Because I felt like this. You're not going to keep those things on me.
That's right.
You're not. You know, in the business world, somebody is, you know, they tripping. I don't have a problem with walking up to a guy and say, hey man, look here, let me explain something to you. This is why I did this. This is why I said this. I don't know what you heard, but this is what I said. And matter of fact, I've told you first. Now, I thought maybe, you know, maybe you wasn't hearing me. So I told somebody else that I knew would talk to you about it so that they can tell you. So now you hear from a different voice. Exactly. Right? Exactly. And it's only because they agreed with me that we even talked about it. So when they come to you and say, Ryan said this, no, they also agreed with it.
Right. Right. So, and you know what? You make a valid point. I mean, just look at that. You know, you're holding these things in. And this is why I'm solid in teaching my son. You know, I tell him, I don't care what it is. I don't care how bad you think it is. See, we're taught, you know, first of all, we're raised in fear and pain. And then not only that, we're taught if you do something wrong, be embarrassed. Now, if you do something that you think is wrong, because it ain't wrong, it's just a lesson, learn from it. Don't do it again. That's it. Yeah. You know, but we're taught all these, oh my God, what are people going to think about you? You know, you better not tell nobody that. Look at the shame and embarrassment that you're putting out there, that you're and the people attached to it. They're attached to that. So it's like, oh, I can't tell nobody that I was raped. Or I can't tell anybody that I accidentally stole a pack of gum. Or I can't tell anybody that I got written up at work. You know, you don't want to tell because society has set it up to you're bad if you make a mistake. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. And they're not taught that way. People are not taught you make a mistake, you're the worst person on earth. That's you taught. You are your mistake if you make a mistake. But you should be taught mistakes are opportunities to learn from. That's what I teach my son. I tell him there's nothing you can do that's wrong because it's for you. Learn from it. Just don't repeat it. So he talks to me about any and everything. So when his feelings are hurt, cry. Give you money. And I don't tell him don't cry. I don't tell my son don't cry because if I tell my son don't cry, I'm telling him not to feel. You know, and I'm telling you, Ryan, this is a lot to do with like a lot of victims of abuse. It's bad enough you're being violated as a child. You know, no one's believing you. You got all these threats, and then you're this little person in there. Is confused, doesn't know what to do because first of all, your parent didn't teach you to feel or to, you know, to express. Come to me if you're feeling sad. Come to me if you're feeling down. If you're feeling worthless. If you're feeling like if you're feeling dumb or whatever you feel, come to me. Let me help rebuild you. These things are not even being taught. So you look at these kids like when we first started talking, these angry children out here. They're not being taught to feel their real emotions. When I'm sad, I'm going to cry. I'm going to release. You know, I try not to exhibit anger because it's just not a healthy emotion. You know, if there's an issue with my husband and I resolve conflict in peace. But guess what? I'm getting it out. I'm not holding on to anything. And I don't care how you feel afterwards. And that's not to say I'm callous or ruthless. What it is to say is I'm not going to wreak havoc on my own body to save your feelings. Feelings are going to always get hurt. You're going to get hurt. Somebody's going to hurt me again. So guess what? I can't stop you from getting hurt because it might not be me, but somebody's going to get you. So let me express myself to you. I got to get this out. We don't do that. And whether you've been sexually molested, physically abused, cheated on, you know, raped, whatever it is, pain is pain. You cannot measure it. You cannot minimize it. You cannot say rape is worse than sexual because there's pain behind it. You know, you cheated on, to some women that's just as bad as being raped. You know, because look at the feelings that's behind that. You got to deal with that feeling like, you know, you're the reason, you know, you was worthless. You know, what did you do wrong? Why did he do this to me? The feelings are the same, you know, but we don't want to look at the pain. We don't want to look at the emotion. We don't want to go in there and feel that feeling. So it all comes out as anger or depression. And when it's depression, you're jumping. When it's anger, you're hurting others. Simple as that.
And that's exactly it. From that point on, I was like, wait a minute, I ain't gonna let nobody else kill me.
That's right. And that's what it is. Let nobody else.
And I'm glad that at 19, 20, 20, whatever I was, 21, 22, at that point, I'm glad, where it was a situation, because I tell people, the Air Force is not, the military is not for everybody. The Air Force, I'm glad I went because I grew up quicker. I learned things about me that I might not have ever learned. Who knows what would happen? I said, but that little lesson taught me something. And if those things didn't happen, then I wouldn't be who I am today. I might not even be living, because you know what? Maybe I was ashamed. Maybe I'd have had a heart attack. You see these kids dropping dead, just dropping dead on the basketball court. You don't know what they're going through. And
you don't.
So, so my whole point was, you know what? You're right. And I mean, I already knew that, but that's what, we as people, we need to, and I mean, people need to talk to you. You need to do more seminars. You need to, get that book out. More people need to have this book in their hands, for whatever reason, you're going through, because I'm looking through the comments and people talking about it helped me learn how to forgive. It helped me, get over what I went through. People got different things out of your book. And so, I'm thinking to myself that if a person is going through certain things, here's a great book. People are like, hey, I read it, one day. I read it in 6 hours, and I'm like, that's pretty awesome, So, but I am going to wrap this, Kel. And this was an unbelievable, conversation. So I know the people who are watching this today, who later, they'll get something out of it. I want to tell them that the links are in the description. If you don't know who she is, her Twitter is her link to Black Folk Hotspots page, which has her links to all the other places, are in the description. Let's see here. Shameless plug. We got these shirts. Black Folk Hotspots is in the description. If you want to talk about your business, it's in the description. Kelly, tell people how they can reach you.
Okay, so you can reach me on Facebook at Kelly Porter Turner. That's Kelly with an EY. You can reach me on Twitter, Kelly R. Porter. My Facebook business page is Kelly Porter Transformational Life Coach, Life and Healing Coach. And then if you want to stop by my website, it's www.KELLEYPORTER.com. But basically find me on Facebook, and then you got me. Send me a message. I'm here for you. Again, I'm a life coach. I have 10 different programs: forgiveness therapy, relationship coaching, abuse recovery coaching, emotional trauma, death and transition, and 5 other major programs. So reach out to me if you need some assistance. I'm here for you.
I'm gonna tell you, if you want it real,
buy my books directly from me.
Buy that book. Buy the book right now. Credit card, pull it out right now. Go buy it. Amazon. You got Amazon credit.
Yes, save your life.
Even if you don't buy it right now, put it in your wish list, because
put it in your wish list
till you get the money. Because Amazon, I love them because they will keep bugging you until you buy it.
Yes, yes.
And if you read it, if you've already read her book and you haven't left a review, even if you just say great book, please do, because that helps someone else. I know I go to Amazon before I make a major purchase, or even if it's just a book purchase, and I look at the reviews. I don't care if I'm standing in a bookstore. I go look and see what other people had to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, okay. And this book has 4.9 out of 5 stars. That's huge.
And it's sold in Canada. It's sold in Canada, United Kingdom, India, and the United States. It's international, 4 countries.
Hey, I'm gonna throw you something. I'm gonna throw you a bone out here too.
Okay.
I've been talking to authors, and I talked to this one particular author. He just happened to be incarcerated right now.
How's that working for him?
I don't know how I'm not going there. I don't know how I've been talking to him when he's incarcerated, but I will say this. He wrote a blog post. I don't know how he wrote the blog post, but he talked about how his book has been He had his book translated in many languages,
Mm-hmm.
so that he can sell in different cultures. And so I'm gonna tell you, if it's something you hadn't thought about, do it. He said
it's there. It's on the list.
He said the sales that came in from different countries and languages he didn't even speak, and then was just phenomenal. But yeah, he was just a guy who was trying to get to where he was already going to go too fast.
Right.
And
yeah,
he was in school at Harvard. He went back to school. He was actually he was in school. He's almost done. Wow. I mean, he literally, and a lot of it was because he was taking the train back and forth. He was staying, when he went to Harvard, I think it's in Boston, I want to say, or outside of Boston, somewhere. When he would use, stuff, credit cards, this, that, and the other, to train fares and different things, to in apartment, it was going to Boston and book shows. He would use these things. This is what I always tell people: be wary of, don't always look at a person and be like, hey, they blowing up, they doing this, they doing that, they always here, and here, because you don't know how they getting that dough. So
exactly.
Because really even though I appreciate them, I'm like, man, you were selling enough books. You had a lot of good stuff. You could have bartered a whole lot of different things. You could have went and moved to Boston. You could have rented out a room in somebody's house, but you didn't have to do the things you did. And he's paying for it, But you know what he said?
But that just goes to show, Ryan. That just goes to show, what people show us isn't always who they really are.
Oh yeah, I tell people all the time, just because that person just bought a new Lexus or BMW or Mercedes Benz or this, that, and the other, don't always mean that dough, that business owner, you think they a business owner.
And that's
but
why I put my life in books. This is who I am. I'm a life coach. I ain't got nothing to lie about. Hey, this is me, and the outcome. This is it,
Hey, Kelly, I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. But I tell people all the time when I'm trying to reach somebody at a business owner that's out here flying, and I try to reach them at 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock, and I can't reach them, or at 1 o'clock, and then all of a sudden they happen to call me at like 5:15. I'm like, yeah, they just got off work, but it's not a problem because, but it's just the thing that don't portray this. I mean, I know that you got to fake it till you make it, and this, that, and the other, because I did that with Black Folk Hotspots. I worked a full-time job until until January 2011. It is what it is. But don't try to make people think that you need to be full-time in your entrepreneurial efforts right away. And then if you got to go back to work because you want to make ends meet, that's okay too. Right.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm going back to work for about a year. Yeah, I'm just.
Nobody looks at you and go, she's failing or he's failing. No, that person's being smart. Right. Hey, I gotta keep this roof over my head, and I gotta do these things, and I can use that extra because I always look at it like this.
My business.
That company I worked for was angel funding Black Folk Hotspots.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going back, because it's a few things that I want to do. Of course, me and Patrick want to leave Illinois.
Yeah.
So, and then he told me, he said, you got a year. Make it happen. If you're not where you want to be in a year, go back to work, make some extra money, and reinvest in yourself. So I'm blessed to have had this opportunity. But am I happy to go back? Yeah, I am, because I know that money waiting on me, and I'm going to get it.
Yeah, you gotta go do it. You gotta do what you gotta do. And Mark Cuban said this in the blog post, and then I'm gonna wrap this. He said, in the blog post I read, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. He said, his suggestion was people who want to be entrepreneurs and they know they want to be entrepreneurs. He said, when you know what you want to do, he said, go find a company that does that and go work for them. He said, you learn all the tricks of the trade. You learn this, that, and the other. You can move up through the ranks. You can move around the company, this, that, and the other. And you let them fund your business.
That's right.
He said, he said, you wasting your time if you go to business school or you go to college to be in business when you want to be in business. So that's just a nugget. But anyway, Kelly, hey, I appreciate you. This was great. You did phenomenal as always.
Thank you.
I mean, even since the last time we talked, I could see some even more growth, some more understanding, some more knowledge that you even picked up. So I know that each client you have and each, you're gonna grow because it's always gonna be something new that come up like, damn,
exactly.
That's right. Real fucked up. But I know that you say that sometimes. I mean, you have to. I know I will.
Can't say that.
I know I might not say it to a person. I'm like, damn, that's jacked up. But no, I get it. But but keep striving, keep going because you're touching people. You're fixing people. You're making it better out here in this world for everybody. And people don't realize that because these people with these short fuses. Yeah, a lot of them. These stuff that PTSD is real, and it comes from. It just don't come because you went to Iraq and Iran and Saudi Arabia and all this. It comes from that household you lived in too.
That's right. That's where it started.
There's a lot of ticking time bombs out here, and sometimes all they do is they need to talk to somebody. That's all they need. So if you got somebody that needs some help, send them to Kelly. All the links in the description. Rewind back and get her contact information. Check her out on Facebook, Kelly with an EY, the R Porter Turner, whatever her name is. I don't know.
Porter Turner.
Kelly R Porter. But
thanks, Ryan.
it definitely. All right, hey, Kel, thanks. I appreciate it. You have a great night. Tell Pat I said hi and the little man.
Will do. Love you.
You got it. Peace.
Good night.
But yeah, all righty. But anyway, that's Black Folk Hotspots. That's what we do. So if you're a black business owner, you're watching this, make sure you create a profile on Black Folk Hotspots right now so that we can share your business, put you into our rotation. That's what we do. We support black business. We like to share black business. If you go through our Twitter feed, if you go through our Facebook feed, if you go through our LinkedIn feed, if you go through our Instagram feed, our Google Plus feed, our YouTube feed, that's 90% of what we talk about and what we share. Don't tell me you can't use it. You can always use more exposure, or McDonald's wouldn't be advertising, or Walmart wouldn't be advertising. Allstate and State Farm wouldn't be sponsoring football games. Coca-Cola. They know. More exposure, more growth, more dollars. Peace out, y'all. GI operation, go to blackfolkhotspots.com. Peace.